Shifting focus to another big story, the horrors unfolding in West Asia, and they continue to make headlines. It is nearing a month since the war broke out between Gaza and Israel. And as Israel continues its crackdown on the militant group Hamas through air and ground assaults, the country's defense forces have said that the head of Hamas's special security, Jamal Musa, has been killed in an Israeli midnight attack. The Israeli security forces have also arrested 23 people in East Jerusalem. They are accused of violence and incitement. Meanwhile, Jordan's King Abdullah said in a post on the platform X, at midnight, Jordan's Air Force personnel airdropped urgent medical aid to the Jordanian Field Hospital in Gaza. The heads of 11 United Nations agencies and 6 humanitarian organizations have jointly appealed for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire in Gaza, the protection of civilians and the swift delivery of food, water, medicine and fuel to the region. The call for a ceasefire comes at a time when Israel continues pounding Gaza with significant strikes, and according to country's defense forces, its troops have encircled Gaza city, cutting the region in two parts, a south and north.
היום, כוחות צה"ל, בהובלת סיירת גולני, כיתרו את העיר עזה. הם הגיעו עד לחוף הים, בחלק הדרומי של העיר עזה, והם כיתרו את העיר עזה, ובעצם היום יש עזה צפון ועזה דרום.
The Israeli army has also said that its forces had struck over 2,500 terror targets since ground troops entered the Palestinian territory late last month. The Israeli army has also said that it has opened a humanitarian corridor to allow civilians in northern Gaza to evacuate south.
موجود في شارع صلاح الدين جنوب حي الزيتون. احنا اليوم فتحنا شارع صلاح الدين كممر إنساني لمواطنين شمال القطاع. أنا بطلب كمان مرة لكل مواطنين شمال القطاع ومدينة غزة، انزلوا جنوب وادي غزة. شمال القطاع ومدينة غزة هي منطقة خرب، منطقة خطيرة جدا. حماس المجرم الإرهابي بيستغلكم قدروا بشرية. انزلوا جنوب قطاع، انزلوا جنوب وادي غزة. احنا بنعطي السماح لإدخال المساعدات الإنسانية لجنوب وادي غزة.
While Israel continues to make advances through its ground assaults, Gaza was struck by fresh explosions on Sunday. The blasts and flares were seen in Gaza from southern Israel, and shortly before the strikes, internet and telephone lines were cut, and the strikes continued overnight. According to health officials in Hamas-controlled Gaza, more than 9,700 people have been killed in the region, including 4,800 children. Meanwhile, in Tel Aviv, several rockets were flying directly over the city. The rockets were intercepted by Israel's Iron Dome missile defense system. While in south of Lebanon, 4 civilians, 3 of them children, were killed by an Israeli airstrike on Sunday evening, raising the likelihood of a dangerous new escalation in the conflict on the Lebanon-Israel border.
العملية اليوم اللي صارت هي عملية إجرامية، عملية إرهابية. 3 أطفال أنا شفتهم، أنا حملتهم بإيدي. 3 أطفال احترقوا بالسيارة وما في حدا ينقذهم، وأمهم أنا شلتها وهي عم بتصرخ وتقول أولادي وين هو؟ وين هن الإرهابية؟ أنتوا الإرهابية يا إسرائيلية، وأنتوا الإرهابية يلي عم يدعموكم، وأمريكا هي راس الإرهاب وهي أم الإرهاب.
Amid spiraling tensions over Israel's war with Hamas, America's top diplomat is on a Middle East tour focused on humanitarian aid for the Palestinians. Now, to tell us more what's happening on the ground, we are being joined by our correspondent, Jody Cohen. Jody, thank you so much for joining us here on WION. I wanted to ask you, the CIA director is currently in Israel. What are we expecting on that front?
Hi, Ananya. Yes, so Bill Burns is in Israel and will be visiting other countries in the region too. He's going to be meeting with his intelligence counterparts and also political leaders, and he's going to be having talks, and he's likely to discuss the situation in Gaza, US support for negotiations on the release of the 240 hostages held in Gaza, including the 30 children and babies, and on deterring others from widening this conflict. Now, on Monday we heard that the US has moved a nuclear submarine to the region, and it's very rare to hear an announcement of this sort about where the submarine is located. Remember, the US already moved 2 aircraft carriers to the region, and both moves are being seen as a warning to Iran and Hezbollah not to get involved. Now, the New York Times has said that the US sent a message to Iran and Hezbollah saying that the US would be prepared to intervene militarily if they launch attacks against Israel. And Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, has hosted Hamas's head, Ismail Haniyeh, and expressed Iran's support for Hamas. And we've also seen rockets fired at Israel and US troops from Iranian-backed groups in Lebanon, Syria, Yemen and Iraq. Meanwhile, Secretary of State Blinken has been touring West Asia. He met with leaders from the region. They had talks on preventing the war from spreading, protecting civilian lives, increasing the flow of aid. But there was also a point of difference between them on the subject of a ceasefire.
All right, Jody, thank you so much for getting us all those updates from Ranana.